a good-looking group here. And I understand we're just getting started, so you guys have a lot of time to catch up. But we want to get started here with a good group of folks who are just going to talk about their stories as entrepreneurs, tell their story about business, and we will have a little short conversation and let you get back to meeting each other and networking. So I'm going to invite up the folks who are on the panel one by one so that you can meet them by name. So let's start with Osiris Hoil. Is Osiris here? There you go. Come on up. And Gabrielle. Osiris is co-owner of District Taco. Coming up. After Osiris will be Gabrielle Jordin. So Gabrielle is with Jordin's Jewelry. Gabrielle, coming up. After Gabrielle is Aaron Saunders, and Aaron is CEO of Clearly Innovative, which is a development company here in town. Software apps. And last but not least is Trevor Wilkins. Trevor is the CEO and co-founder of Kudzoo. So he's going to get mic'd up. Oh, no, we got one more. I'm sorry. Let Trevor get mic'd. And then also joining us is Julia Wilson. And Julia is the CEO of Wilson Global Communications. So this is a good panel. We've got a lot to discuss in a short amount of time. I'm just going to start this out with just a quick story because I grew up in Detroit, and I've been here for a long time, but I grew up in a family of folks who, on my mom's side, it's basically the classic Black American migration story from Alabama, moved to the city. Grandfather worked in the auto plant, and he worked in the auto plant his entire life from the time he moved up to Detroit in the 40s until he died in the 80s. And but that was his Monday through Friday. And on the weekends, he and some friends owned a plot of land that they farmed, and they sold vegetables on the weekends. And like so many people and families in Detroit, people had a side hustle, right? Right, a lot of people still have a side hustle. And so for many of us, we'll have a traditional story. You know, you read these books from, some of the, big billionaires and the people who've been really successful. They tell you these stories about how they got started and what happened and pulled themselves up and all this. And then they'll make some statement like Donald Trump. And I only got $1 million loan from my dad. It's a small loan just to get started. $1 million in like 1975, by the way, not $1 million today. But for those of us who don't have a parent or a relative or a bunch of friends who can stake you with $1 million, the rest of us have to figure out how to pull this thing together. And often that means having a side hustle. And then hopefully you get to the point where that side hustle can turn into your main hustle. And you can kind of keep that business growing. So we're going to talk about the real challenges that people face, but also the successes that people face when they're in this endeavor, and then what that means for public policy, and what that means going forward as a community in terms of growth and wealth and all the things that our host, who is one of my dear friends and I've learned from so much, Maya Rockymore, is one of the things that Maya has talked to and taught me about so much, the importance of wealth when we're thinking about public policy. So with that, I'm going to get started with the group. And I'm going to ask you all just this one general question, and you can tell us a little bit about what it is that you do in your answer, and then talk about it. But let's just get started hearing your story and what you think is the most important lesson for an entrepreneur that you can think of. And we will start. Actually, we'll start this way, Osiris, and then we'll work our way back around. You're it.
The only thing I can just keep thinking is about the food here. The smell is so good. So good evening, everybody. My name is Osiris, and I'm the CEO of and co-founder of District Taco. It is a restaurant that I started as a food truck, actually a taco stand, in 2009. Now, after we had the food truck for like almost a year, and now we have 7 locations open, 2 locations under construction, and a lot of deals going on in Philadelphia and around Washington, D.C. area. So we're expanding really aggressive. But one of the lessons I learned when I had the taco stand was I almost give up, the actual idea, because the way how I started, it was kind of interesting and kind of long. But I lost my job in 2008. I got laid off when the economy was really bad, and I used to do construction. I came to America in 2000 actually. I was only 18 years old. And I thought myself to learn English at the restaurant bar, talking to drunk people. So it was kind of interesting. I couldn't afford to go to school. I was working 60 hours a day. A week. So it was really bad. Yeah, I know. It's the food. So when I came here to Virginia, I found this job, the construction. So I started. I worked for 2.5 years in that company, and I got laid off, unfortunately.
Unfortunately or fortunately?
Well, I don't know. Probably fortunately, yeah. But nobody wants to get to that point where you feel like you lost your job. And my wife was pregnant, with my second child. Health insurance was through that company, and I had to go to Cobra, which was so expensive. So all those, like the pressure of a parent as a husband, it was like, I felt nobody. I felt like, the bottom, So, and with my business partner, I started with this taco stand since I love to cook and I love food. Food is one of my weaknesses. So, but I almost gave up because it wasn't working. The taco stand wasn't working at all. I didn't make money for maybe 4 months because everything that I was making from the taco stand, I was actually reinvesting it on the product, on the food. I always believe that the product needs to be fresh, right? Because we have role models. I won't say the names, because of my competitors. But I always thought, even though I was so small, with just one taco stand, I was feeling my heart big. I was competing with those big boys out there, So that was one of the lessons I learned, that giving up, it was an option in my head.
Hi, I'm Gabrielle Jordin. I am 16 years old, and I started my first business, a jewelry company.
She said 16,
yes,
by the way,
16.
in case you missed that.
I started my first business, which is a jewelry company called Jewels of Jordin, at 9 years old. And I also wrote a book at 11 called The Making of a Young Entrepreneur, the Kid's Guide to Developing the Mindset for Success. When I was 12, I became a speaker and then became an international speaker. And now I actually co-founded an organization with my mother called Excel Youth Mentoring Institute, where I mentor other young people using my story and my journey and helping them to develop and grow companies, as well as hopefully linking them up with other mentors that are in their field. And one thing that I would say to someone, or advice that I learned, is that you should make sure that you always have value in whatever product or service you have, because your name is being put to that. And I knew that at only 7 years old when I started learning how to make jewelry, and I started selling it on the playground and on the school bus. I still knew, even from that young age, that my name was being put to these little trinkets, to this ring, to this bracelet. So I made sure it was made with the utmost value, even if it was just coming from Michael's.
Hello, my name is Aaron Saunders. I am the CEO and founder of Clearly Innovative, but I also, my side hustle started out about 5 years ago volunteering at Howard University Middle School for Math and Science to teach entrepreneurship and STEM programming to the kids there. That has now grown into, we're at 5 DC public schools right now teaching. We have 4 locations set up for summer camps. And most recently, my company's education brand called Luma Lab was selected to run the incubator innovation hub at Howard University. So the story that I tell when I talk to kids, and also I teach at Howard, the story I tell is that you never know where things will take you in business. I mean, I'm a software developer. That's what I do. I write code. Before I came here, I was writing code. I started writing code in 6th grade. To me, when I was in 6th grade, my pinnacle was, being a developer. And I'm 52, so that was a long time ago. But the point is that you start down one path and you never know where it will take you next. And writing software was my passion. I still enjoy it. But once I reached a certain point in my life, kind of finding a balance of giving back was also important to me. And so that's how we got into this STEM education and training, mostly focusing on black and brown kids, with an emphasis on the mentors and the teachers also being people of color. So my company, and some people here know my company, is probably 98% African American. The camps that we go and we work at, we make sure that there are people of color so that the students can look up and see role models that look like them. And the last part is I learned the hard way. When we started at Howard University Middle School for Math and Science, we brought in mostly African American males to tutor the class. And one day this girl stood up and she said, "Don't you know any women?" And she was right. And so we made an effort to go find some women to come in so that they can have some proper role models. But also to tie it back to kind of what we hear about in the whole color of wealth, the very hard lesson that I learned was that none of the things that I accomplished would have been possible if I did not have some money. It's sad because I look at all of the children that we have touched. I looked at all the students that I work with at Howard, and I know that the only reason that I was able to do it was because I was blessed and I had a top secret level clearance before I started my business, and the government paid me a fair bit of money, which I put in the bank to start my company. And so when we look at the students, and also in my services business, when clients come in, mostly African American, people of color clients, the number one struggle they all have is they just don't have enough money to get their idea to the next place. And it's hard for me because I want to help everyone, but I have a business to run also.
We know this intimately. Aaron helped us when we were developing our company, getting started. So.
Hey everybody, my name's Trevor Wilkins. I'm the co-founder and co-CEO of Kudzoo. We're a mobile app, free mobile app that rewards students for academic achievements. We essentially allow students to convert their grades, attendance, daily trivia into rewards such as gift cards, discounts, etc. We've been up for about a year and a half, and in the last 9 months we've gone from 4,500 students to about 500,000 students. I myself am a Princeton graduate. Just kind of my story. I was a sociology major. I was a recruited athlete. I was a sociology major because I heard it was the easiest way to graduate. But I really fell in love with the major, and one of the things that really sparked my interest was the fact that being a Southsider from Chicago, that I had the mental capacity to get into and exceed at Princeton, but society would tell you that my friends did not. One of the things that I saw, and one of the catalysts for creating Kudzoo, was that I saw incentives work in my own household. I was given $10 for A's, $5 for B's, and then we actually had to pay my parents $20 for every C that we got.
Now that's a new twist on that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Weren't too many C's. But I saw it work. I saw this work in the household. I graduated from Princeton. My brother's a Yale graduate. My sister's currently a junior at Penn. At the time when I graduated, I had the idea I saw how important those rewards were to me, and I thought, kids that I grew up with, I was not the smartest dude in my group of guys, so I knew that, my boys could have easily exceeded at Princeton, and for that reason, I wanted to create Kudzoo. Not everybody's going to go to an Ivy League school, but even a community college education can do wonders for an entire family, and those looking up to others. So that is kind of my overall story. The one thing that I'd say, the most important thing that I've learned, just kind of speaking to your point, is you never know what you're really going to fall into. And to that, I say pitch as often as you can and pitch to as many people as you can about your idea. And not only that, but pitch your goals. Money is a big issue, especially amongst our people. So one of the things that I fell into in terms of pitch competitions, in terms of meeting investors, things of that nature, was just explaining where we were in the product, pitching the vision, and then also saying what our needs were. The person I was pitching might not have been able to provide funds, but they might have known somebody to connect us with an incubator, or known somebody to connect us with pitch competition or something of that nature. So this is my story. Thank you.
Great. Julia.
Kunjani, ni hao, buenas tardes, bonjour, good evening. I'm Julia Wilson, and I have an international business. We're Wilson Global Communications. I'm the CEO and founder. I started the company in South Africa in 1994. I went there as a TV news reporter to cover the elections, actually, when Mandela ran for president. And I'd never heard anything positive about Africa or African people. And so when I saw all the positive things that I saw, and saw freeways and palm trees and all of that, and I'm from Los Angeles, I was devastated because I felt like I'd been lied to all my life. And so I picked up the phone and called the TV station and said, I'm not coming back. And I called my family and said, I'm not coming back. And they said, are you crazy? You're staying in Africa? And when I hung up the phone, I said, oh my God, what did I do? And then I didn't have a job. So I thought, what am I going to do? What am I going to do now? So I listed my skills, and to me, that equaled a public relations company. So I found some local partners and launched Wilson Global Communications South Africa in Johannesburg with Coca-Cola as my first client within 30 days, thank God. So we have since morphed. We started out doing mainly media relations and positioning the Coke brand and other multinationals that were coming into the new South Africa. And then I expanded to Ghana and worked for some of the, worked for the government there to promote the top 100 businesses in Ghana during President Clinton's visit there. And now we've morphed from media relations more into relationship building. So we are now in China. We have secured 1,400 scholarships for minority kids to study in China, compliments of the Chinese government. Students from congressional districts, from HBCUs. We have over 100,000 students that are eligible for these scholarships. Most of them are credit-bearing for college students. So we are very busy with that. And I would say the most important thing that I've learned is to be very flexible and versatile, because initially you wear a lot of hats. You know, you're the bottle washer, you're the cook, you're the writer, you're pitching clients, you're doing everything, and until you can afford to hire somebody to help you. And then gradually, you know, I have been able to farm some of these chores out, but being flexible and being open to morph into something else, because sometimes you may start doing one thing, like some of you have mentioned, and then may end up doing something totally different. And being open to going global is the most important thing I wanted to get across to the audience tonight, because many times we limit our mindset to think that we should only be looking at jobs and opportunities and businesses here in the States, when there are millions of customers all around the world that we have access to, if we just look out. Thank you.
Yeah, it's funny, when I started my first PR business 10 years ago, and one of the things one of my mentors said to me very early is, he asked me what I wanted to do, and I gave this list of services. He said, let me tell you one thing, the market will tell you what you do. It's great to have a plan, but sooner or later the market's going to tell you. Trevor, I'm going to ask you, because we started here, Julia touched on this, but I wanted to kind of get your experience on this. You came out of Princeton. How long between Princeton and this beginning of your entrepreneurial career?
I started immediately. I didn't apply to any jobs, which was nerve-wracking.
Okay, so great. So what did your parents say about that?
You know, I got really lucky. My parents, similar to actually your grandfather, my grandpa came from Mississippi with about $15 in his pocket and started up his own screw and nail shop. He's done deals with, you know, Cat, John Deere, et cetera. So he was able to, I had a kind of an entrepreneurial background in my family, and you know, I laid out a plan and just said to my parents, like, look, this is what I'm doing. If it doesn't work after a certain amount of time, I have a Princeton degree. That's it, you know, I'll be okay. So that was kind of one of the first things. They were taken aback, though, however, but they were supportive.
And what about you, Gabrielle? You're starting early, and how are your parents reacting to your entrepreneurial career?
Yeah, my parents are basically my driving force, but I think that entrepreneurship has really been in my blood because on my mom's side, I have 5 generations of entrepreneurs. And when I became an entrepreneur, I became that 6th generation. So immediately, when I even had the idea to start making jewelry and start selling it at school, it was like not even a second thought. Hey, yeah, you should definitely have a business. But I think the main thing that actually allowed me to continue with my business, and because being so young, you have so many different ideas. You always want to jump from here and here and here. But with me, my parents made sure to watch me. They made sure to see, did I really care about this? Because, and what they found is that I did, because no one had to tell me to research how to make jewelry. No one had to tell me to take it to school and sell it. Nobody had to tell me to, how to design or how to, go forward with what I was doing. And I think that's what my parents saw. They saw that I actually loved it, or they saw that I had a talent and that I could actually take this somewhere further than just being something I can do on the side or just something I can do in school. They saw there was more to it, so that's why they told me about my legacy, and that's why they told me that I could continue that legacy if I wanted to. And it was always my option, and they were always very encouraging about it, and they made sure that I took the lead, and that's really how I'm still going with my business.
And how do your friends react to this? Because
Yeah.
I imagine they're doing other things, not running international speaking tours.
Yeah, my friends, I think one of the lessons that I learned as I started like 6th grade, I think, one of the lessons I learned was that don't make friends, choose them. Because you will, especially when you're doing something like what I'm doing at such a young age, you're going to find people that are just going to want to be around you just because, you have a business or just because you're cool. But, no, but, I dug myself in a hole. Yeah. Yeah, but, so when I started 6th grade, I decided that I wasn't going to tell anybody about my business until I made friends, or until I chose friends that were doing something too, that they had like mindsets, that when I told them about my business, they wouldn't care or they would be supportive. And then when finally Fox 5 came to my school and did an interview with me during school hours and everything like that, everybody found out about my business. And of course, I had those people that were just trying to use me. I had those people that were bullying me, that asked me for money every day, and things like. But because I took that time to choose the right friends before they found out about my business, I still had that core group, and they still continue to support me to this day. And even though I'm homeschooled now, they're still my friends, and they still support me in everything that I'm doing. So,
Are you accepting investors? Because I think we may be.
I am.
We can all get in on this early and ride this. So, Osiris, you talked about the unfortunate losing your job at one point while your wife was pregnant with your 2nd child. How did you overcome the finance story that we all started talking about? How did that get done for you?
It was luck. So I used to live with when we moved to Virginia from Colorado, we used to live with my mother-in-law and my neighbor, Mark Wallace. I used to go to his house, and I used to grill, make carne asadas, drink beer, just a Saturday picnic. And I was telling him, but I met him right before when I just moved, and I had a job then. But then, I lost my job, and I went back to his house, and we're grilling, and I start sharing my my problems, and he's like, hey, if you want to start something, you're obviously a really good cook. What about if you start a food truck? So I was like, well, I don't have money for a food truck, but let me see, that's actually a good idea. Let me go home and I'm going to go on the internet and try to find out how much a food truck costs. And an actual food truck costs about $90,000 these days. But I found this like a taco stand, a hot dog stand. And the hot dog stand, you can actually change a lot of things inside, which is, you know, I mean, hot dog stand is like a trailer, pretty small, tiny. It was only like $25,000. The next weekend, I went to his house, and we were grilling again, drinking beers, and I told him, look, I found this. It sounds pretty good. And he's like, hey, if you want to start it, you know, I can help you. And I'm like, and I thought I was kind of kidding. Really? You're going to give me $25,000 just to start the job, the company? And like, yeah, you know, let's do it together and see what happens. He's also, you know.
So let's talk about this word give. He give you $25,000?
Well, I mean, like,
$25,000?
invest.
Okay.
Invest $25,000 on me. You know, but anyway, that's how we started, and yeah.
Awesome. And Aaron, one of the biggest challenges companies have, other than financing, is finding the right talent. And I know that you look for talent that is not just good at what they do, but also is diverse. Can you talk about how you source the people in a field that we're all hearing about has few people of color in the STEM field? How do you find the talent for your company?
So when I first started my company here in DC, my first 2 employees were freshmen at UDC. I looked for developers in the DC area, but as most of you know, prices are inflated. The government pays pretty well for people to do a little bit of work. So finding quality developers was just cost prohibitive for me when I started my company. So I decided to just find some bright kids and train them. So that's what I did. I went to UDC, we knocked on doors. Eventually we got a hold of someone who said, hey, talk to this guy. I brought a kid in. He was a sophomore. He had taken a few programming classes, had done some contracting stuff on the side, and I brought him in and I trained him to be a mobile developer. And within 2.5 to 3 months, we had him, you know, billing out the clients, making money. He found a friend of his who was actually a freshman and had only taken 1 software development class in his life. We brought him in and we trained him. So then those were our 2 developers. We have since scaled. At our largest, we were about 18 people. I am the only person in my company that has a computer science degree. We have trained pretty much every single one of our developers that work for us. Since I now teach at Howard, what I do is identify students on campus either through my classes or through my network there, and I bring them on board. We train them, we teach them how to be developers, and then we get them jobs, we get them billable. We don't do the unpaid internship. If you come in, we pay you when you work. The model that we use to hire is that we would just say, we're hiring anyone. You don't have to have a software development background, but this is our technology stack. Build us something and come talk to us, and it doesn't have to work. And I've done this long enough that we have a pretty good record. We've only had like 2 people who couldn't cut it. But we bring people in, we pay them a decent salary, above minimum wage, and we give them about 30 to 60 days to demonstrate to us that they can be successful. And if they can, we keep them on board and we keep it moving. This is a model that we are attempting to scale in the Innovation Incubator at Howard. We believe that there's a large part of our community that is missing out on opportunity in the technology space because there's this stigma that either you have to have a computer science degree, or it's too hard to do, or you have to go to a dev boot camp and basically give your firstborn. Dev boot camps are about $15,000 for 3 months of training. But the problem is that there are some things about them that make it a challenge for a lot of people in our community. A, it's full-time. B, you have to give up your job. C, if you have any sort of life or family or kids or anything, you can count that out. I believe that there's an opportunity to create educational opportunities and workshops to train people on how to get into this space if you construct programs that understand that people have lives. And that's what we're attempting to do as we scale up the Innovation Hub and beyond.
Great. And I think I'm giving a sign that the time is up, but I'm going to take moderator privilege and ask one more question before we go. And it's of Julia, because I know you're doing international stuff. If you can give us 90 seconds on this question. As an African-American woman who's traveling around the world, I know you've been back and forth to China, Asia, all over the world. What is that like, and is there any advice you could give to other people in the room who are doing international business about how to navigate?
Well, the number one thing is being culturally literate, really being sensitive to other cultures. I think that's the number one lesson that I've learned traveling around the world. Now, as a woman, it's a little bit challenging because there's no women's lib in most of the countries that I work, okay? In African countries or in China and countries like that, and most of the people that I deal with are men. In Africa, I learned that if I walked in a room, for example, I'd see women holding on to their husbands, and what I would do is I would walk up to the women and befriend the women and ask them after a while if they would introduce me to their husbands to do business. So I've learned a variety of ways of adapting to the cultures in various countries.
Great. Thank you very much. And thank you all for having us. It's fun being here. Hope you got something out of it.